of Department of Radio Diagnosis and Intervention Radiology, AIIMS, New Delhi, I welcome you for this third Dr. Anoop Memorial Lecture. Anoop was very brilliant and sincere postgraduate student and loved by all of us. Today is his 36th birth anniversary. So with this, I hand over to Krishna. Krishna, now you can continue.
Thank you, Deep sir. Good evening, everyone. Dr. Anoop was a wonderful person, an efficient radiologist, and loved by all. He was the ideal student and an inspiration to all his juniors. His sincerity in clinical work, enthusiastic case presentations, and empathy towards patients were exemplary. Equally talented in sports, he always managed to find time for his favorites, football and cricket. Born and raised in Kasaragod, Kerala, he graduated from Calicut Medical College. He completed his radiology residency with us at AIIMS from 2012 to 2017. His hard work earned him the Dr. Shyam Sharma Gold Medal for the Best Radiology Postgraduate of the year 2014. It broke our hearts when Dr. Anoop's journey was cruelly cut short on the 28th of August 2020 after a valiant battle against leukemia. Although fate stole him from us too soon, Dr. Anoop will forever be a part of the AIIMS Radiology family. Today, on his 36th birth anniversary, we come together once again to honor his memory. I would now like to invite Professor Raju Sharma to introduce the speaker for the third Dr. Anoop Memorial Lecture.
A very warm welcome to all of you. It is my proud privilege to introduce my dear friend, well-known radiologist, entrepreneur, and the doyen of teleradiology in the country, Dr. Arjun Kalyanpur. He is the chief radiologist and founder of Teleradiology Solutions, a global healthcare company headquartered in Bangalore that reports radiology scans for over 150 hospitals spread across the US, Europe, Africa, and Asia. Teleradiology Solutions was ranked as the #1 teleradiology company in the US for the year 2011. This group also has a software company that develops workflows for teleradiology called Telrad Tech, a not-for-profit division, the Telrad Foundation, a teaching portal, RadGuru, and a clinical research group, ImageCore Lab. So it's evident Arjun wears many different hats. The AI division of his company is working to develop deep learning algorithms for the early detection of breast cancer, brain hemorrhage, and lung diseases. Arjun trained at All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi, so he's an alumnus of our department, and we are proud of his achievements. He trained at Cornell University Medical Center and Yale University in the US. He's an active contributor to the scientific literature and serves on the review board of many journals. He's received a number of awards, and in the interest of time, I'll name only a few. He was awarded the Modern Medicare's Entrepreneur of the Year Award in 2007 and was named one of the 50 Pathfinders in Healthcare in 2009 by the Express Healthcare magazine. Frost & Sullivan honored him with their Healthcare Entrepreneur of the Year Award in 2015. He's also a credentialed radiologist in the Yale and UPenn systems in the US. Arjun is a voracious reader and loves to travel. His other passions include writing, music, and tennis. His better half, Dr. Sunita, is a renowned pediatric cardiologist of the country. His daughter, Alicia, is currently pursuing her surgery residency in PGI Chandigarh. His son, Adil, is a rising star on the international tennis horizon. Arjun is ideally suited for the topic today because his career spans the canvas of academia, entrepreneurship, and excellence in radiology. The floor is all yours, Arjun. A couple of announcements for the audience. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat box, and the moderators will be happy to take them. Over to you, Arjun.
Thank you very much, Raju. It's an honor to be delivering this lecture this evening and for my alma mater. Dr. Anoop sounds like he was an exceptional radiologist and individual, and I would like to pay my tribute to his memory. As Raju said, he and I go back a long way. He was my senior resident when I was a PG at AIIMS, so it's a very special thing for me to receive this invitation to speak. The topic on which I'm speaking today is academia, entrepreneurship, and the pursuit of excellence in radiology. I'd just like to confirm everyone can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Yes, great. So when we talk about academia and entrepreneurship, there's usually a versus that comes between the two, because traditionally we see that there are different stereotypes that come into our minds. When you talk about academia, you think of a professor in a classroom or a researcher in a laboratory. And the words that come to mind are words like cerebral or conservative or methodical. The profession is considered secure. Academia is considered secure, whereas entrepreneurship brings to mind stereotypes of commercial, flashy, impulsive, and risky. And the kind of faces that come in our thoughts are very different. But this is the traditional situation. And today, I think the lines are getting blurred. Today, the academics of today are stepping out of the classrooms and the laboratories and are beginning to make their voices heard on the global stage in terms of influencing public policy and public thought. Whereas the academics, on the other hand, are people with, apart from their business standing, a deep understanding of science and technology, which allows them to perform as entrepreneurs. So the lines are becoming blurred, the lines of division. And there is one thing I would submit that is common between academia and entrepreneurship, which is really the basis for this talk, which is the pursuit of excellence. In my own academic career, I have been fortunate to have trained at some of the best institutions in the world, beginning with the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, which was a truly special experience for me. For my undergraduate and postgraduate years, I was able to train with the best minds in medicine and radiology. And I would say that the advantage of being in an institution such as this is that it pushed me, first of all, it was fabulous education, but it also pushed me and challenged me to grow and think as a physician and a radiologist. So I have deep feelings of gratitude towards my alma mater, which to a large extent shaped what I am today. One thing I would say to the postgraduates in the audience is that while you are acquiring your training in whatever in radiology, it's also helpful to acquire different skills. And my own experience in this regard comes from a computer course that I attended when I was a PG at AIMS in South Extension. I used to go there on the weekends, and it taught me the basics of information technology, operating systems, spreadsheets, database. But more than anything else, it opened my eyes to a whole new world of IT. And in those days, we're talking about 1990. It was a very different world back then. And I think this learning gave me insight and inspiration into a new world which came to which came to use much later in my career. It's also important to widen one's horizons and push out of one's comfort zone. After finishing my PG at AIMS, I relocated to the US, and my first year there was as a medical intern in a large city hospital, where I spent most of the year exhausted and sleep deprived. But it was valuable experience because I was able to see from the bottom up how the medical system worked in the United States and to understand the challenges and issues faced by medical residents and physicians at the hospitals there. And that, I think, has made me a more empathetic radiologist. And it has also given me some valuable clinical insights which helped me in the course of developing this organization. Some of the specific learnings from my training in the US, I would say are, number one would be, we have a bit of a white god factor when we talk about training overseas. And I think when I went to the US, I was a very shy person and didn't speak up for myself very much. And therefore, it was a baptism by fire because we're dealing with very confident and articulate people. And that learning was extremely valuable for me. It shaped me as a person as well as a radiologist from the perspective of having to stick to my guns and defend my position on a given case. And I think it's important to also realize that the color of our skin does not dictate who we are. It's really our intellect and, more importantly, our character. So the second experience, I think, that was very valuable for me when I was in the US was the resident conference. And this can be a very traumatic thing because you're required to stand up in the middle of a crowded room of residents and take a case which the professor has put on the board. and discuss it. And it's extremely helpful as well as extremely traumatic, because it forces you to think on your feet and to learn how to communicate. And I think for me, a lot of my analytical and communication skills came out of this experience of President Conference. And the last thing I will mention is the American board exam, which was a very difficult exam and a stressful exam for most of the radiology residents. But I approached it with a mindset that I was going to enjoy the process. And I think for me, that made it a lot simpler and a lot more pleasurable. My board experience was actually quite interesting. I got along well with the examiners, and it ended up being quite an enjoyable process, contrary to the usual expectation. So I think mindset is very important in this regard. The other lesson from academia that I have learned is that it's really important to publish. For one, it's great learning. Secondly, it creates opportunities. And finally, it gives credibility to one's work. One of the first papers I published was when I was a resident at Yale. And this was a technical topic on use of compression technologies for teleradiology. It was written in collaboration with the department chair and the head of IT. And I learned a lot from this publication, which later helped me in the work that I was to do. Subsequent publications also formed the basis and foundation for validating the whole model of emergency international teleradiology. And these also gave me benefits in my early years in setting up the company. And this paper, you will recognize the first author, Dr. Anjali Agarwal. She's one of my colleagues. I've had the fortune of working with her for almost 20 years now. An exceptional radiologist and an alumnus of AIMS, both undergraduate and postgraduate. And together she's the head of our research group, and together we've been working on a lot of research projects. And our belief is that one does not necessarily have to be in an academic institution to do good research. It is possible to do that even in a quasi-academic or non-academic setting as well. So to bring us forward to the story of my accidental entrepreneurship, I call myself an accidental entrepreneur because essentially that's what I am. It was a time and place situation more than anything else. My batch of 1983 had a reunion some years ago, and I was unanimously declared the person least likely to do anything entrepreneurial. So clearly it's not something that was expected of me. And from a genetic standpoint, I come from a very small community, the Konkani community, which is from the coast of Karnataka. We're only about 20,000 people. And as you can see, most of them are, at least the well-known ones are in the performing arts. They're mostly professionals, scientists, and so on. So business is largely a dirty word. And so when I made the decision to relocate from the United States and come in a very successful academic position to come back to India to an unknown future and then enter entrepreneurship, it was a source of considerable parental concern and embarrassment. Luckily, there was one precedent in the form of Mr. Nandan Nilikani, who you're probably all familiar with, who headed Infosys for a while in the Aadhaar project. And so it made perfect sense to invite him as the chief guest to the inauguration of our new campus when we opened it in Bangalore. But going back to the beginning, 1999, I had done a residency and fellowship at Yale. I had a faculty position there, chose to return to India with dreams and aspirations, and was met with a rude shock that there was no job opportunity for me in the city of Bangalore, where I decided to relocate to. Fortunately, I had my affiliation at Yale intact, so I continued to go back to Yale. And during one of the trips, a conversation with the chairman there, Dr. Brink, he mentioned that they were having difficulty getting someone to do the night shift. And I, on the spur of the moment, said, this is something I can do for you from Bangalore, and it would be a day job for me there. So the light bulbs went off in both our minds, and it was a eureka moment. And Jim was astute enough to immediately take me up on the offer and support it from the perspective of doing a research project, which we did and published, to demonstrate that international teleradiology did work. And mind you, this is in the year 1999, when the internet had been there for a few years, but it's before the era of Skype, or the voice over internet had barely begun. So the internet, the whole concept was very, very new. But the learning that comes out of this whole experience, I think, is that one can convert adversity to advantage. When one door closes, another one opens. And if one keeps that mindset in life, I think one can get through a lot of difficult situations. So at the beginning, we focused in our organization on finding solutions to problems. And the fundamental problem that we realized was the case was radiologist shortages. So the solution that we offered was a reading center where radiologists would cover multiple hospitals at the same time, and thereby deliver an economy of scale or an efficiency of scale that would address this shortage situation. The second thing was the issue of night shift coverage, which was obviously the most pressing problem after hours emergency coverage. And having the radiologist on the other side of the world meant that the night job became a day job. So there was an efficiency there. And then finding radiologists to work on weekends, we addressed that by being radiologists in the Middle East and Israel, for whom Sunday is a working day. So that helped us with our coverage issues. And then the issue, once we had put some of these innovations in place, we were able to deploy them in countries like Singapore and in various countries around Africa, and translate the benefits that we had delivered in the US to these other geographies as well. So fundamentally, the word innovation, which is thrown about quite a bit today, is the basis of, is the process of finding solutions to problems. And I think our learning from this, the early years, is that constant innovation is extremely important to make impact in anything you do. The benefit of this was when President Obama visited India in 2010, our organization was invited as part of a small select group of, in quotes, innovative companies to visit and meet with President Obama. And you can see my co-founder, Sunita, there in the picture next to the president. Of course, there were a lot of challenges in the early years. And as I said, this was the early 2000s. Bandwidth was a huge problem. It was costly and it was unreliable. We started with an ISDN line, moved to a leased line. I remember days when the internet wouldn't work. I would have to go to the lineman's home, and he would be brushing his teeth. I'd put him in my car and drive him to the telephone exchange to reconnect the internet connection. So it was that sort of situation. Power was also an issue. Of course, we dealt with some of these challenges by developing redundancies, so that we always had backup for everything. And of course, we ended up doing a lot of this work ourselves because we had no other senior management to fall back on. But I think the big learning for us from these early years is that you don't necessarily need a management degree or even a business plan to become an entrepreneur. What you need is fundamentally the will to push through challenges and to persist at it. And a big choice presented itself to us in the year 2003, which is basically just about a year after we got started, in the form of a large technology company coming to us with a buyout offer. And it was a very tempting offer at the time. But fortunately, we had seen the future and we had faith in our abilities, and we had a dream and ambitions, so we decided to turn it down. And many years later, this was written up in an article in Forbes by Mr. Subroto Bagchi himself, a very senior entrepreneur. And he mentioned what we told him was our philosophy, which was, worst case, if it didn't work out, we would go back and join a local practice. Best case, it would work out and we would create something magical. And of course, in retrospect, one may say, when you look back, that it has worked out better than we ever imagined. And so the learning really is that it is, in times of decision-making, one should take a chance on oneself based on one's abilities and have belief in them. So what did we work on in the early years? The first and most important thing is we wanted to understand what were the clinical problems, the pain points, and address them. And I would do this in the form of visits to the hospitals that we serviced. And I would show up there in the middle of the night at the emergency room, usually with a box of donuts for the staff, and have meetings at 1 or 2 in the morning with them and learn from them what were the issues they faced. And that was the only time one could meet them, because these were all doctors working the night shift. And the kind of relationships that were forged during these meetings were so strong that they have lasted 20 years. A lot of our clinicians swear by our reports for many reasons, but one of them being the fact that they have this personal connect with our radiologists. And so it's possible, even when running an international teleradiology company from across the world, to develop very, very close links with referring physicians. The second thing we would do is conduct resident conferences at some of the hospitals which had residency programs. And here's a picture of one in Philadelphia. And of course, the RSNA meeting gave us an opportunity to connect with our clients every year. But fundamentally, I think the thing that we really worked very hard at was to focus on quality. And I'm very fond of this quote from one of my former professors at Yale, which is that you're only as good as your last mistake. So we worked on continuous performance improvement and error analysis using the RAD peer review process. We thoroughly evaluated all our discrepancies. And I would say the gist of this entire approach, which I communicate to all our radiologists in our organization, is that it's very important to submerge the ego. So in an organization providing a service such as we do, we feel we have a collective brain, and the goal is to deliver the best report without individual egos being bruised in the process. So everyone needs to be receptive to feedback. Everyone needs to be willing to accept that errors are made and to learn from them and to move on. And I think that is the fundamental basis for any quality program and performance improvement. We also learned early on that learning and teaching have to be simultaneous. Everyone needs to learn and teach each other. And learning and teaching are what form the core of excellence. So we worked very hard to develop a learning culture. And out of this came a teaching portal called RadGuru, which we run today, which because of our radiologists being distributed all over the world, we had to do our training online. And so the RadGuru portal was an extension of this to radiologists also outside of our organization to provide them with learning opportunities. And through this, we run several educational programs, including one with the very successful one with the Society of Emergency Radiology. The other learning that came very early on is that quality was our best reference, much better than any form of advertising. This image I'm showing here depicts a scan of a patient who presented with abdominal pain, and there was a small loculus of extraluminal air in the porta hepatis region. And I remember when we reported this, there was some debate and discussion. The physician was not quite convinced about the finding, but eventually it was confirmed to be true. And this one case was recognized and appreciated so much by the chief radiologist that it brought us a lot of great references around the entire geography of that hospital. So testimonials such as this one that you see on the screen really helped us to grow. And we didn't do any advertising at that time, but our reputation grew by word of mouth based on the quality of our reports. Of course, later on, we did go in for the certification process of the Joint Commission. And as Raju mentioned, we were rated as the best in class or the best teleradiology organization in the United States, which obviously helped us a great deal and put things to a different level. But fundamentally, what we realized is that more than the intermittent brilliance of a single great diagnosis is the importance of consistency in reporting. And I think this is something that we all should recognize and appreciate as radiologists. So early on, we began to focus on the process of reporting, making our reports clinically relevant, using the scoring systems such as the trauma surgeons use to make our reports clinical context. We developed checklists to ensure that the reports were thorough and complete. And we used technology with structured formatted reporting and the use of macros and standard terms so that we were on the same page as the referring physicians. We also knew right from the beginning, because ultimately all of teleradiology, especially in the emergency setting, revolves around turnaround times. And these turnaround times are extremely short. So we have to deliver reports within 30 minutes anywhere in the world. And if it's a stroke case, 15 minutes. And this is obviously a huge challenge in the setting of a radiologist shortage. So the key to all of this and this entire enterprise of teleradiology lies in making radiologists more efficient. So the basic basis for this was creating a teleradiology workflow of our own, which we did in the form of this tool called RadSpa, which sits in the cloud and allows for multiple hospitals to transmit their cases simultaneously and the cases to be reviewed by multiple radiologists anywhere in the world. And establishing a support team that works with these radiologists very closely to make them more efficient was also an important part of increasing radiologist efficiency. The further element of the search for efficiency led us to artificial intelligence. And in the last few years, we've been working on developing algorithms, which we decided were going to be focused on areas of public health importance. So one of them being stroke and trauma. So we have one algorithm called Neural Assist, which works on detection of intracranial hemorrhages, which, as in this case, you can see can be quite small and subtle. And in addition to quantifying and localizing them, also helps in triaging these cases on a work list. At the other end of the spectrum, on large screening programs in breast cancer, we have an algorithm that allows for early stage breast cancer detection. But the fundamental learning from this is that it is important for us as radiologists to embrace technology and to keep looking for new solutions to existing clinical and public health problems, because these problems are not going to go away. And if we fear technology, it does not serve us any good. We need to embrace it and adopt it. We also developed an entity called Image Core Lab, which was a clinical research division based on providing structured reporting for pharmaceutical and biotechnology companies, as well as companies in the AI space and validation. We realized from this that there was a revenue opportunity in research as well, and also developed a technology tool called ClinSpa, which allowed for the workflow of such complex clinical research assessments. Very early along, I realized that I had certain skills and I lacked certain other skills. So my skill fundamentally lay in being a competent radiologist and being able to mentor other radiologists in different parts of the world and bring them aboard the program to be able to work collaboratively as a large radiology group. So I focused on that part of it. I also realized that there were certain weaknesses which I couldn't fulfill. Fortunately for me, my wife, and who is also the co-founder of the organization, and as you've heard, is a pediatric cardiologist, is very entrepreneurial and has a very strong finance sense. In fact, she happens to be from the Marwadi community, so she's genetically programmed to be a good finance person. And that's been extremely valuable, of course, because I have zero finance sense myself. So we have complementary skills, and that has helped us to work together and grow this organization together. And it's been an immensely rewarding journey. But obviously, we couldn't do it all. And we have been fortunate to be able to recruit and get on board some very exceptional senior managers, both from the perspective of business development, sales, HR, and operations. And of course, in the space of IT, because IT is essentially the backbone of everything we do. Building an organizational culture is very important in any growing entity. And we work very hard on this. And our realization has been that it's really the small things that matter in this regard. So having someone at work to provide a neck massage for a tired radiologist can go a long way. Having a band, this is our band called the Teleradiators, who perform at office functions, and it's a great form of relaxation for them, as well as for everybody else. Having frequent office interactions and engagements. So this is our 20th anniversary party held earlier this year, where we flew down all our radiologists to attend, and we gave them the opportunity to perform so you can see Dr. Anjali here performing a Kathak dance. And during COVID, we kept it going with virtual celebrations of various kinds. So at every stage, we worked on the little details that have made our organization somewhat different and unique, in that having fun is a very important part of the process. And from a personal standpoint, I would also say, as radiologists, we are susceptible to burnout. Of course, as entrepreneurs, we are as well. So it's been very important for me personally to enjoy the journey throughout, and being with the family and having family time is a very important part of this, and I think it's an important thing for all of us to be focused on. From the perspective, it's also important to indulge our hobbies and our passions, and in that regard, I would like to share with you an Instagram page I have called Imagination, which focuses on radiologic art, where you will find images of this kind if you click on the link. But the single most important thing that I learned along this entrepreneurial journey is something that I would like to share with you. So 7 years after we first submitted our first tender, we won a contract in the Middle East. It took 7 long years for it to happen. And this was a contract with a hospital in Saudi Arabia, which is a joint venture between Aramco and Johns Hopkins. But that opened up other doors for other entities in the Middle East, including a recent one in Qatar. But it took 7 years for it to happen. 10 years after we made our first proposal to the government of India, we won our first state tender, which was with the state of Tripura, and deployed teleradiology for the state government. So it took a whole decade for it to actually happen. And 13 years after a Harvard professor visited us to explore a collaboration, and then decided that we were too fledgling to make the collaboration work, we eventually did end up signing that same contract. And today we perform 3D post-processing services for Massachusetts General Hospital from our center in Bangalore. And then 20 years after starting with our very first client hospital in the US, we today cover several large hospital networks across the United States, which includes some of the Ivy Leagues, such as Penn and Yale. So the learning from all of this, I would say, and this is the crux of my message, is that entrepreneurship needs patience and perseverance. Not just entrepreneurship. This is, I think, a fundamental life lesson. It's something we tell our children, and I think everyone, can benefit from this approach. That entrepreneurship is fundamentally about having an idea, believing in that idea, and then putting all of your might and your weight behind that idea for a long, long time. It's being passionate about something and sticking with it and not giving up on it. And that's fundamentally what it is. So I see myself as an academic entrepreneur. I believe that the goddess of learning has blessed me and guided me towards the goddess of prosperity. And that gives rise to the question, was there a greater purpose that took me from being an unemployed radiologist back then in 1999 to an entrepreneur today? And out of that thought has come the Telerad Foundation, whose goal is to help poor patients get access to quality medical diagnosis. And we've benefited through this foundation over a lakh of patients. The fundamental model of the foundation is to provide free reporting to hospitals, to charitable hospitals, which themselves do not charge the patients. And it's based on the philosophy that every person has an equal right to health care. So we work with the Ramakrishna Mission Hospital in Itanagar in Arunachal Pradesh. We've been working with them for over a decade. They have a CT scan and an MRI scanner, but there is a shortage of radiologists there. So we have been reporting for them free of charge for over a decade now. This has been exceptionally rewarding. And the second thing has been a trust fund that we run called People for People, which focuses on the fact that every child has a right to play. And the model lies in installing playgrounds in government schools. And so far, we've installed 525 playgrounds in government schools across southern India. So that's my presentation. Thank you for attending. It's been a pleasure, and I would like to thank Dr. Raju for inviting me, Dr. Deep, and everyone involved in this wonderful initiative. Before I conclude, I would like to share with you one small video, which is, I think, the essence of our organization's DNA, which is that it's possible to have fun while doing work of significance and impact. So bear with me.
Teleradiology. Let's go. thing. An opportunity that's better than what you can think. We've come a long way when it comes to medicine. We're knocking on the future now and it has let us in. Yeah, so you wanna hear the vision? I recommend you sit back for a second and just listen. I got a radiologist who's here and on a mission. So tell us all your goals, Doc, and what do you envision? Well, I wanna serve the world and do good, that's a fact. Save lives of the people, make a difference and impact. I wanna help patients, anyone who's in need, and I'm doing just that right in front of my screen. Anywhere in the world, I can work, I can read these scans and reports I send and receive, saving one life. Can you please? I just saved like 40 right there on that seat. A pandemic may come, a pandemic may go. No, the work will go on, that is for sure. At TRS, you are never alone. So tell me, what exactly is it that you're waiting for? Come join the vision, let's make a difference. Stay at home and social distance. The perfect job, the perfect goal. You see why I never wanna quit? Yo, I feel at home now. This the 21st century, let's make some memories. Time to get on board and be the happiest you'll ever be. A boring day at work? That's the thing you'll never see. Come and join the family. Once you join, you'll never leave. Quick turnaround times, yeah, TATs. Provide service with top-notch quality. The best of the best in radiology. That's Teleradiology. Yeah, Teleradiology. Yeah, Teleradiology. Teleradiology. That's Teleradiology.
Thank you very much. It's over to you, Raju.
May I request Sanjay and Ashu for their comments and for some quick questions if there are any.
Dr. Sanjay, please go ahead and I'll ask.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Ashu. I must thank Arjun. I must thank you and also congratulate you at the same time for doing this wonderful oration for us in the memory of one of our dearest and brightest students who unfortunately no more. And while the title of your oration, looked very catchy, I found the journey and the whole story was even more inspiring. I'm sure you'll be inundated for advice from our residents. You created an opportunity where none existed actually, all because of the focus and quality work that I heard you said. So, Ashu, you want to say something?
Yeah, a couple of questions, Arjun, I saw on the chat box earlier. Mostly, what should I say? They're calling themselves quality radiologists who want to be entrepreneurs at the same time, but seem to get intimidated by the process, particularly, the legal and compliance issues and the fact that would this be viable at all? So they're saying there should be a separate organization for people who want to deliver quality. But so you made it sound like a fairy tale ending to what a lot of people want to do. They want to make money, but they want to make money ethically and do good work. So what do you suggest? Like, do they find a mentor, or how to make that journey a little easier for yourself?
Those are all great points and great questions, Dr. Ashu. I think it's true. I mean, definitely when we started out 20 years ago, we had no idea. The whole field was very new. So we were kind of figuring it out as we went along. So it's extremely helpful, yes, to have a mentor to sound things off. In our case, we've had a board that has advised us throughout our course. And I think that having senior advisors who can mentor you and guide you is extremely helpful. I think from the perspective of the question of doing quality work ethically, I think that is definitely doable. I think we've been working at that now for 2 decades, and it's really what our country needs. So I'm really happy that radiologists are thinking about this. I think that entrepreneurship can be both ethical and satisfying. I think there is no conflict between the two. I think that mindset in the past of entrepreneurship having there being challenges with it is no longer the case. I think our government today is a very transparent and open government. It's possible to do things with complete business ethics and to build an organization that is very ethical and strong. From the perspective of radiology quality, I think we need to be focused on delivering value to clinicians. So making our reports clinically relevant is probably the most important thing we can do, and ensuring that we follow checklists to make sure that the reports are of high quality is equally important, and technology can help us in that.
So in terms of quality of reporting, I have another question which says, how do you ensure accountability and quality of reports when there is no face-to-face and paper report system? How do you ensure that those on your panel are delivering good quality reports? Like, is there a feedback system? And if there is a negative feedback, do they get penalized, or how does it go?
Absolutely. There is a very strong peer review process in place, which we have worked very hard on for the last 20 years. We've set up a quality assurance program, which is based on internal peer review as well as external audits. And we have accumulated masses of data, and that data is used both for establishing trends. So identify whether a particular radiologist needs focused training in a specific area, or any particular training for the group as a whole. The whole training program comes out of the quality assurance data, and the data is also communicated back to the radiologists and shared with the hospitals. So it's a very open and transparent process, and that forms the basis for all performance improvement and learning, organizational learning. So I think that's key for any teleradiology organization, because you have to be able to communicate with the hospitals and give them assurance that your work is good. Your reports are ultimately your best advertisement.
Another point is that I would not call people fly-by-night operators, but you know how teleradiology has mushroomed, and there is this big panic everywhere of that because there are so many. So that has brought down the payments to, from 50 rupees to 100 rupees to. How do you see this industry evolving with so many players on the field? Like, are they all going to survive, or where will teleradiology reach? Will we be left with few big players, or?
Yes, so this issue of pricing is definitely challenging. I think it's not a good practice to be undercutting other teleradiology practices. I think the IRI has made some efforts in this regard in terms of, I sit on one of the committees actually where we've discussed this issue and set some standards in this regard. I think fundamentally, if one wants to do a good job and do quality reporting, then it comes at a certain cost. There is no question about it. I mean, our radiologists need to be well reimbursed. So I think it's a matter of working with the hospitals and assuring them that there is a cost that comes with quality, and that when they pay for it, they will get good quality, rather than negotiate on the basis of price and drop the quality levels. So it's a philosophical decision in terms of where teleradiology is headed. I think we've seen, our experience in the US has been that it has been a volatile area. A lot of companies that started at the same time as we did 20 years ago have ceased to exist. So definitely there is going to be a lot of change in teleradiology in India as well. There will be companies that will start and will close. Definitely the players that will sustain and survive will be the ones that are focused on delivering ethical and quality reporting.
Similar question came up in chat box just now, that they, pays very little CT brain, 50 rupees. We already addressed that. He said that IRI has tried to. So in your quality control also means that you exercise quality in the radiologists you employ. There would be like, how do you go about choosing who works for you? Like,
so we actually administer a selection test. And we found that to be very important for us, because obviously, radiologists come from various different programs, and it's difficult to say. We've made it a standard practice of our organization to conduct a selection test for all of our radiologists, and that gives us a baseline into both their style of reporting, and it also gives them an insight into the kind of work that is there, that is in store for them if they join our organization. So it actually benefits both sides. And I think it's a very useful benchmark for us in terms of deciding whether or not to recruit someone. And it's also forms a baseline for performance improvement going forward, because we do a lot of training, and we can use that as a basis for determining the improvement as well.
Yeah. So lastly, what would you say to naysayers who say that radiology is a dead subject?
I would tell them that they're dead wrong.
Yeah, I'm on the same side as you, but I want to hear it from more people. And, Arjun, rest of the comments are lots of compliments. And the topic you chose was really nice, because I think it's more important to talk about the practice of radiology and how people can build careers. I'm going to hand you over back to Dr. Sanjay and Dr. Raju in case they'd like to add something.
Yeah, thank you, Ashu. I have one small comment and followed by a question. The comment, of course, is that, the quest for excellence is driven by passion. You see, no matter what you choose to remain in academia or you become an entrepreneur. But the question in the real world is for our fresh senior residents, who are finishing, they have to make a choice to stay in academics or enter into entrepreneurship. Of course, the opportunities permitting. So the question now is that, are both these things compatible at that stage and in our setup? You've been an AIIMS alumnus, the almost the fabric of the place and how it works.
Well, I mean, I think my message in short is that if I can do it, anyone can do it. As I said, I had zero entrepreneurial abilities, but with the right support, I think it's possible to do entrepreneurial things if one has the mindset and the passion for it. I think the fundamental thing is to focus on doing a good job, and everything else falls into place. It's a very simple philosophy.
So two very important takeaways from your talk, Arjun. Thank you for that excellent talk, by the way. One was submerge the ego. I think I found that very significant. If you have to build a team, you have to submerge the ego. And the other was you're as good as your last mistake. I think two very useful takeaways for our young colleagues. We have many senior radiologists who have joined us to hear your talk. I would invite any comments from them. I know Harsh is logged in. Harsh, would you like to make a comment, or any of the other senior people in the audience if they have any comments to make?
Hi, Raju, and hi, Arjun, and everyone. That was really a wonderful talk. And your journey has been spectacular. It's been inspirational. And the fact that I remember the first RSNA, when somehow the word got around that scans from the US are going to go to India for reporting, and we had people making jokes, and also actually, the radiologist responsible along with you for talking about it and thinking about it got a lot of flack that our work is going to get taken away. There was some, apprehension also that, the US radiologists would have a lot of problems. So you've come through that and still stuck to it. Congratulations. And I would echo what, Arjun is saying. I also did something entrepreneurial, maybe not as big, but, it's something that has been thrust on us who have been born in the middle class, where parents were in jobs. My parents were teachers. And somehow, when I came back from the US, I didn't find a suitable job. And, I'd done MR, and there was no MR here, only one at INMAS in DRDO. And it took 2 years for that job to actually materialize, during which, this crazy thought comes to your head, ki humne khud karna hai. And at home, they would laugh, that this guy has gone mad. He's start talking of crores. Crore, you couldn't even pronounce the word at that time. And so I think one just has to seize the moment and flow with the times and not give up. And anyone can do it, like Arjun said. if he could do it, anyone can do it. It's the same for me. And today, when I tell people that we set up a MRI in Delhi 2 years before All India Institute got the MRI, that's really tough to believe. And so I would welcome, all young radiologists to try to do something. But do remember, it's a lot of hard work. You will not be going back home at 5 or 6. You will not have that quality time with your children and with your spouse. You will have to work 18 to 20 hours a day. You will have to face all the problems when a report goes wrong or something goes wrong. Be ready to face all of that, and you'll have to be completely immersed. And of course, you have to be passionate. There are times when, entrepreneurs feel, why didn't I get into a job? Why do I have to face this on a daily basis? But thank you, Arjun, for taking us through your journey. There are a lot of learnings, and all the very best to the youngsters here. And radiologists are here to stay. Don't worry. Maybe radiologists will use AI, but radiologists are here forever. Thank you. Thank you, Raju.
Thank you, Arjun and Harsh. It's rather humble of both of you to say that if you can do it, anyone can do it. You two have been special in the entrepreneurial journey of radiologists in the country. It's been a treat having you, Arjun, and listening to you. Thank you so much. Just time for some trivia. Arjun's son, Adil, is a very skilled rap artist also, in addition to being a tennis star. We have enjoyed some of his rap music. I think, Arjun, some of his videos are available on YouTube.
Yes, and on Instagram as well. Thank you.
And I see that he is logged in. So congratulations, a word of congratulations to Adil for some really wonderful rap. We love the song that you have composed for Arjun. He should really be grateful to you for that.
Thanks, Raju.
Thanks very much. And I would like to thank all the audience who joined us for this talk. Thanks, Arjun, again. It's been a wonderful experience.
Thank you very much, Raju. Thank you.
Raju, I just want to make one comment.
Yes, please.
Yeah, very inspiring lecture, and the journey that Arjun you shared with all of us. And it's a 24/7, 365 days work. It's really very much, too much efforts. Do you see some scope of teleradiology in future for intervention radiology guidance? No one can do intervention work through teleradiology, but many experts can guide about intervention radiology solutions, like a patient having abscess, what should be the approach in remote areas, so that you can extend or can include, add in your armamentarium.
Absolutely, Ragdeep. I think that there is a big future in cardiovascular and interventional radiology from the tele aspect. One of the projects which I mentioned, which we do with Mass General Hospital, is the post-processing of CT angiography images with the goal of planning interventions such as embolization of aneurysms and so on. So that is one aspect of where teleradiology is used for being used in treatment planning, in endovascular treatment planning. And definitely there are many more such possibilities where a tele component can be added in.
Am I audible? I'm Smriti here.
Hi, Smriti. You are.
Hi. Can I just add a line?
Please.
Yeah, Arjun, Pankaj is also with me, and
Nice.
he also thoroughly enjoyed your journey, your presentation. Pankaj, my husband, and Arjun are batchmates. So,
That's very nice. Thank you.
and I really liked what you said about submerging your ego whenever you want to have a team, have a effective, community. So yesterday I heard two beautiful Urdu lines on ego. There is this lady from Pakistan who's a very renowned writer. So she said, ego, the Urdu word for ego is ana. So
Ana.
she said, yeah, ana. So she says, ana ke घोड़े पे बहुत लोग सवार होते हैं. ana के घोड़े पे सवार होकर आप चलते बहुत हैं लेकिन पहुंचते कहीं नहीं है. So I think that was a beautiful thought. I mean, अना के घोड़े पे सवार होने से हम सबको ही बचना चाहिए. So I just wanted to say that. And thank you, Arjun. It was so wonderful to hear you.
Thank you, Raksmiti, and please pass on my regards to Pankaj.
Yes, I will.
Once again, on behalf of the department, I thank everyone for joining us, and a special thanks to Arjun for this wonderful talk that he gave us. Thank you so much, Arjun.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Raju. Pleasure and honor.